My name is Andrea Rosales.
Nadia Sol Irerium Sueta Carrasco.
Well, my name is Jose Martinez.
My name is Daniel Garcia.
Rigo Padilla.
And where were you born?
I was born in Mexico.
I was born in Medellin, Colombia.
I was born in el Distrito Federal de Mexico or Mexico City.
I was born in Mexico, Guanajuato.
I was born in Mexico, Distrito Federal.
How do you define yourself?
I think it's always changing how anyone, especially I, define myself. I think for the past few years I've been defining myself around my undocumented status. So undocumented, unafraid, unapologetic. And I think although there's a resonance in all those three words, I think we all kind of found a way to make them special to ourselves.
Today, I define myself as an undocumented Latina woman of color. Currently trying to find the difficult process of living freely and radically.
We came up with the concept of I define myself because we always felt that there was always someone else trying to define us, whether it was politicians saying that, this is what an undocumented person is or speaking for us. So we felt that it was necessary for us to say that we have a story, we have a voice, and we choose to define ourselves.
When I started telling people that I was undocumented and I was in high school, but I'm not really sure that, one, I knew what that meant. I mean, I knew what it meant, but I didn't have necessary feelings about it yet. And so I'm not sure that I could adequately explain to my friends what that meant for me. And lately, we're still in touch, me and some of my school friends, and so it's clear to me now that they didn't understand what I said, or maybe that they did, but in a different context.
I didn't always identify myself as undocumented publicly. It was not until maybe around a year ago that I started to reach out to people and to start sharing my story. Before then, my response would have been that for safety reasons, I just kept stayed in the shadows, kept quiet, because I felt it was going to be safer. But now that I've started to share my story, started to talk about my status, I've realized that if you don't say that you're undocumented, you really don't get the help that you actually need and require. And this is particularly true if you're trying to get into college and you're trying to maintain in college. I find that, for example, in school, counselors will lend you a hand, but if they don't know you're undocumented, they might give you resources that you have to deny. And they may know of resources that are available for undocumented students, which they don't share with anybody else. And so in identifying myself as undocumented, I not only give a face to the fact that this is what an undocumented person is, and eliminate many of the perceptions that have been floating around regarding what is an undocumented person. But I also I'm able to find more resources, able to find more people that are able to help me.
Well, I think for me, coming out has a couple of different benefits and reasons behind it. One of them is because when I was growing up, I didn't know that there was such a big community of people that had grown up undocumented as well. I had a lot of friends who were immigrants, a lot of them who also didn't have their papers, but most of them had come here when they were older, 21, 18, 36, right? And so it's a completely different experience. And I didn't have anybody other than my sister to really think about how growing up without documents has affected our lives. And so now that I have found that community, it's kind of that thing where I want to tell everybody that it exists and that we're here and that they shouldn't feel alone, and that that it's not necessarily that it's going to be okay, but that we're going to work to try to change things.
Well, the risk that you feel is if my employer knows, will they fire me? And sometimes some employers kind of know, but it's sort of an open silent thing. They know, but they don't formally know. If you say it openly, then maybe you fear that you might face some problems. I mean, a lot of times people have this random idea of what an undocumented person looks like. They don't realize that an undocumented person could look like me, just a student, a friend of their kids, they just put this. If you don't have a person or a face to an issue or a label, then it's really easy to toss that person away or not consider them as much.
Okay, there's definitely risks, right? And I think that looks very different from each and every person. For me, one of them has been that I don't know if people would be willing to take the risks to hire me necessarily, because I'm very open about being undocumented, and technically, like, you're not supposed to hire people without work permits. And I feel like that's kind of an impediment, and it's been one of the biggest frustrations in the work that I do. Is there are some amazing organizations that are like, okay, you know, we are going to hire people that are undocumented because they like qualify for a job and whatever, and there are organizations that say like, I can't hire you because you're being too public. So that's definitely been one of the risks.
I think this sounds crazy when I tell people, but I always say that you're safer when you come out. You're safer when people know about your undocumented status. So for me, it wasn't until I came out that I gained a support system that if I was ever in deportation, I had a group that would fight to stop my deportation. It was through coming out that I was able to find money for school. It was through coming out that that I found an emotional and find an emotional support system that I can now go back to. So I think it's hard to say that to someone for the first time, and when they're hearing it, they say, "What do you mean? It's crazy," because all our lives we've been told, you know, that you shouldn't reveal your status, that you should live in the shadows. But I think through coming out, you encourage others to do the same, and to find their own support networks and to create their own support systems. And in doing so, people begin to support you. Yes, you'll find some opposition, but I think overall you gain support and you actually are safer.
Well, I think for me, coming out has a couple of different like benefits and reasons behind it. One of them is because when I was growing up, I didn't know that there was such a big community of people that had grown up undocumented as well. I had a lot of friends who were immigrants, a lot of them who also didn't have their papers, but most of them had come here when they were older, like 21, 18, 36, right? And so it's a completely different experience. And I didn't have anybody other than my sister to really like think about how growing up without documents has affected our lives. And so now that I have found that community, it's kind of that thing where I want to tell everybody that it exists and that we're here and that they shouldn't feel alone, and that, like, you know, that it's not necessarily that it's going to be okay, but like that we're going to work to try to make it, to try to change things.
There are so many individuals being deported, and the government is really like not owning up to their actions and their words, right? Like the administration, the Obama administration, right? Like we have heard that the Obama administration has deported more individuals than any other president, and has set a quota of like 400,000 a year. And so, like, when you hear that kind of things, it's very horrifying, right? And it's very, and I think that, you know, a lot of times we tend to support undocumented individuals who have, you know, a clean record and who are like the straight A, like poster child of the DREAM Act. But the reality is that there are a lot of individuals who may or may not make mistakes and are caught within this like net of just like criminalizing individuals for who they are. And so I think that, you know, that's definitely a very pressing issue, and I think that it's very important that we just support one another, no matter what the situation or circumstances.
I mean, obviously there's always going to be people that just because you're undocumented, you're never ever going to change their stance or their position on an issue, like especially like immigration. But I think for the larger American population, I think it is sharing your story. It's putting a face to the issue that helps, like I said before, challenge those perceptions of what an undocumented person is. And they begin to try to understand that the immigration issue is much more complicated, and that working together and that addressing the issue puts us in a path towards fixing the immigration system. And with that said, I think the more people come out, the more people realize that the immigration issue is much more diverse. So people from all circles of life, whether it's labor, whether it's based on your your ethnic background or your religion, when you come out, you get those people interacting, creating dialogue, and asking questions, and possibly leading to creating solutions.
Well, having comfortable space, even if it's not a public space, just for others maybe like you or just supportive of you, like just being able to say it, it kind of feels like a weight is lifted. Like you don't realize it, but like once you do, it just feels good.